The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you led the cat up to the top of the building and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like over-capitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well-organized and well-funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
Echoes carried on the wind. We stepped into a moment where a nation would begin. Powder smoke and rising banners, voices ringing through the flame. We rode the currents of tomorrow, found the dawn of freedom's flame. Raise the flame of revolution, let the old world hear us roar. Freedom rides on every heartbeat, marching louder than before. From the Delaware to glory, soft disclosure.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. It's Wednesday, and I'm not joined by Ash, not joined by Ghost. I'm joined by Alpha. How you doing, brother? Oh, you're muted. This amateur rookie over here.
That wasn't me.
That was absolutely you.
No, I muted on the soundboard. I don't ever push the button up there.
That was definitely you, dude.
Maybe.
When I put you in the studio, it automatically unmutes you. You have to manually go in and remute yourself.
Well, me.
What's going on, brother?
Let's test it. Let's test it.
Ash says Ghost looks more Mexican than usual. Okay, so go ahead and mute yourself. Mute yourself.
Me mute myself?
Yeah, you mute. Well, when I put you backstage, all right, mute yourself.
Okay.
All right, hands up. Boom, you're still muted. Now, unmute. Go ahead and talk. Now, unmute yourself. All right, now hands up. Now talk. Talk. You're not muted. Oh, man. Welcome
that for a second, folks.
Shenanigans off the rip between me and Alpha. How you doing, man? It's good to see you.
I'm good, man. Woke up a little earlier than normal. Got into the cold plunge, so feeling good right now.
I was so excited, man. I woke up this morning really early because I had some big news I had to, start writing about. And I go online and like everything was down this morning. Gateway Pundit was down, so I couldn't go and write anything there. X was having all sorts of issues this morning. Like everything was in shambles. And, I don't know, man, just kind of weird how that stuff happens after this explosive story out of New Jersey. My CIA article, if you guys watched Why We Vote last night, Ash and I had Catherine Engelbrecht on, which was fantastic, talking about some of the China stuff. And then we got into the CIA documents that I've been posting about now for a couple days. I think this is one of the biggest stories that's come out of the Trump D-class so far. Granted, we're going to get more and more as this comes down. But, I wanted to get your take on all of that. But you know what? First, hold on. We'll get to your take on all of this, because we kind of talked about some theories last night, and we'll dive into that. But we do have to talk about our sponsors before we get into all that. And let's go ahead and first talk about our friends over at mypillow.com.
MyPillow's second annual mega sale is finally here. Get our patented premium MyPillows that adjust to your exact individual needs to give you the best sleep of your life.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
Now for the lowest price ever. Kings, $19.98. Queens, only $18.98. And Giza Dream bed sheets, the best sheets in history, for as low as $29.98. Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets, towels that actually dry you. What a concept. Now only $39.98. And our made in the USA mattresses and mattress toppers as low as $99.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But that's not all. Order right now and we'll ship your order absolutely free.
All right, mypillow.com, promo code Badlands. President Trump giving Mike Lindell a glowing endorsement.
Yes, he did.
Edminster. That was fantastic. By the way, like a week ago, I had said that I thought he won the primary already. He has not yet won the primary in Minnesota. I thought he did. Maybe it was, I don't know. I don't.
Funny, because I thought the same thing.
It might have been, maybe it was with you that we talked about it then. I don't remember, but I was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure he won.
It's the Mandela effect. I swear I remember seeing headlines that he already won the primary.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. All right, our next sponsor, guys, this episode is brought to you by Cacao Bliss from Earth Echo. I feel like we need some tranquil music while this is playing. A ceremonial grade cacao drink with 7 superfoods that lower your appetite, boost your focus, and calm anxiety. A new study found that one bizarre morning ritual nearly doubled GLP-1 levels in participants within hours. There were no needles, no prescriptions and pills involved. Oh, and this ritual, it tastes like chocolate. The drink is called ceremonial grade cacao. And before you picture a Hershey's bar, let me be clear. This is nothing like the chocolate sitting in your pantry right now. That stuff has been heated, chemically processed, and stripped of almost everything healthy. Raw ceremonial cacao keeps all the good stuff, so the healthy part, the flavanols, stays completely intact. Harvard researchers spent years studying a tribe in Panama that drinks 5 cups of this stuff every day and found that their rates of cardiovascular problems were 9 times lower than Americans. 9 times. Cacao Bliss from Earth Echo takes ceremonial grade cacao and combines it with 7 organic superfoods. It tastes just like hot chocolate, and get ready. This stuff will completely transform your mornings. 10 out of 10 recommend. Learn more and get your special discounts and free shipping today at trycacaobliss.com/badlands. Again, that's trycacaobliss.com/badlands. Cannot say enough good things about this product here. Been adding it to my coffee now for 2 weeks, and I love it.
One of the things that I will say to cacao or anything that's out there is what makes a lot of these products so good or so efficient is it's the process of how they get their end product. For example, a lot of people want to go, I want to do a diet, so I'm going to get a blender and I'm going to start making some juices, right? Not realizing that centrifugal force of the blender actually starts to destroy some of the nutrients. And so a lot of stuff you want when you put it in the blender, you don't get, which then takes you down to the conversation of like a cold press, right? Yeah. So when you go through and you research like cacao or some of these other ones and the way they get to where they get, then you understand this is what separates them. It's interesting.
Very cool. Well, try cacaobliss.com, promo code Badlands. Again, I 10 out of 10 recommend that product. It's been a fantastic addition to my mornings. And I don't know, man, I wake up like I've been up at, usually I hit the snooze at 6. I'm popping right out of bed at 6 a.m. every morning. and go straight to my coffee and cacao. Loaded gun coffee. I throw the Cacao Bliss directly in there, a little bit of Benson honey, and I've just got all the Badlands sponsors in one big mug.
Dude, world's greatest honey, bro.
Here's my mug. I fill this thing like up to here with coffee and then a little bit of cream and the Cacao Bliss.
World's greatest honey, man. I still remember when we did the honey barbecue sauce.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was so good. All right, guys, smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already, and let's go ahead and jump right into the first story of the day. The big news: Governor Mickey or Mikey, I don't know how you say it, Mickey. She's a woman, so I'm going to go with Mickey because I think Mikey is like a girl.
That's what I've been saying, is Mickey.
Yeah, but I think she actually says Mikey, so whatever. Governor Sherrill. We'll just cut out the first name completely. Last week, I learned that a serious software error in New Jersey's motor vehicle system led to the registration of roughly 6,600 people who indicated that they were not U.S. citizens between June of 2023 and June of 2024, almost 3 years prior to my taking office. These individuals answered no when asked on a keypad whether they were a U.S. citizen when applying for driver's licenses and ID cards, but through no fault of their own, the system registered them anyways. This happened under the previous administration, and upon learning this information, I immediately ordered my chief counsel to launch an investigation to get to the bottom of what occurred. I also ordered the removal of any residents from our voter rolls who were erroneously added between June of 2023 to June of 2024. The new MVC administrator, motor vehicle, that I appointed had begun the process of replacing the vendor responsible for administering the system, threw them right under the bus. And that's a system called, I believe it's IDEMIA. IDEMIA. I don't know if it's a word or an acronym, but our preliminary analysis shows that fewer than 400 individuals who were newly registered for the first time because of the error voted. I thought it was only dozens of people, Alpha. We were told it was only dozens.
We were lied to, but we knew better.
The crazy part about this, Alpha, is these people had already voted in one state, 400 people. And that's only because of this error. 400 people registered in a small window of 1 year. When you think of the grand scale of how long people on the voter rolls right now have been actively registering to vote, we're talking about a 1 year window out of maybe 40, anywhere between 30 and 60 years, right? There's people in their 70s and 80s that are still voting, 90s that are still voting. So you're talking about a huge window, and you're only focused on a 1 year period, and it's 6,600 voters and 400 of them actually voted. That is more than we're told. We're told it's dozens of people across the country. And of course, that's referring to people who have been prosecuted for illegally voting. But again, nobody would have known about these 400 people unless either Sherrill came out and said it like she did, or DHS got involved and actually got the voter rolls and started auditing them.
Well, I would say it's the latter, because you remember last week when Newsom came out and said, we have fair and free elections. And Mark Wayne come out and said, actually, we covered that. Here's the thing. And again, I can only compare this to the California DMV. So I just assume all DMVs are like California DMV. And if you guys have recently gone to the DMV or even in the last couple of years, I'm not buying the glitch or an error. These programs in person and online are so tedious. Where's the room for the error to be made? Even at the kiosks, that thing operates there's no out. The confirmation and are you sure? And the part of the story when I caught this yesterday that really caught my attention is people that even voted no, or I'm sorry, check the box no.
All of them.
That it sent them registration. It registered them anyways. I'm sorry, folks. I'm not buying that's a glitch. I'm 100% believing that was intentional. Someone in there manipulated that software to make that happen. And they need to find out who. And they need to find out how. Because then you get to look for that anomaly. You get to look for that across all the states' Department of Motor Vehicles to see, is this something that is outside just this particular state or county? I'm not buying the glitch part, man.
So a couple things about this story. First, New Jersey is an ERIC state. So the Election Registration Information Center, that's David Becker's organization. We've talked about it ad nauseum on this program, Why We Vote, et cetera. They're responsible for the voter roll maintenance from New Jersey. So how did they not catch it that, this was sent up and they're not supposed to send, citizenship information for non-citizens up to Eric, right? They're not supposed to send non-citizen documentation up to Eric. So when they got this that said that, no, they weren't a citizen, how did Eric not catch that, right? Like, where are the checks and balances? And here's the biggest question. And this is the craziest question, Alpha. What happens if an illegal just checks, yes, I am a citizen? Then what happens?
They probably won't even, it probably bypass that. And that's the part where the investigation comes into play, because this is what leads to the charges of conspiracy. Because if I'm Eric, to answer the question you said, how did they not catch it? Well, if I'm collaborating, again, this is speculation. I want to be very clear about that. If I'm collaborating with a third party, a contractor, another agency, and I say, hey, when I run my audits, this is what I look for in my audits, wink, wink. What am I telling you? Whatever you got to do to manipulate this system, don't do it in these lanes, because this is where I look. So if you happen to do it over here, I don't look over there. And that's the stuff that, this is why I'm saying an investigation needs to happen, because when you can identify how that anomaly was created, or the glitch, whatever you want to call it, once you identify how that is, you can then go and apply that to any system that's running, maybe that has Eric or that whatever DMV software. This is why we can't just be satisfied with, oh, they acknowledge it, this is what we have. No, tell us the process of how you got there.
I think we're going to find out, obviously Marquane Mullins made that kind of a veiled threat when he talked about the voter rolls, saying like, hey, this is your one, like, kind of get out of jail free card, so to speak, like, do it now or we're going to have some issues, right? And going up to prosecution. I want to just highlight this post here, because I've been trying to fact check this and I can't get it. Go ahead.
Before you go to that, and just for and I don't know if the audience knows this, or maybe my brain still needs to catch up. When we're talking Eric, is this the same as Erickson, or is this something? No. It is something different. Okay.
So Eric is the electronic election registration information center. It's David Becker, the same guy that runs CEIR, the Center for Election Innovation and Research. He founded Eric. He founded CEIR. He's since distanced himself from Eric. Eric maintains the voter rolls for 30 states, predominantly, but not exclusively, blue states, including Washington, D.C. There was like
30 states.
What's that?
30 states?
30 states, yeah. 30
so you're
states.
saying that potentially there's 30 states that could have this type of error?
No. So to be clear, this is not Eric. Eric should have caught this registration issue. I'm not saying that. Now, there's a lot of errors with Eric, a lot of questions about it. Here are the states that are Eric states: Alaska, Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Hawaii, Illinois, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, New Mexico, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, and Wisconsin. Ironically, I think that's every swing state from the 2020 election. Georgia, you got Georgia right there, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona. I think that's all of them, right? North Carolina is one of them, but they didn't end up winning North Carolina. So, but all the swing states that they won, those are the states right there. Also, there was a Georgia hearing about a year ago, maybe, and the president of Eric, or the CEO of Eric, I don't know what his formal title is, the leader of Eric, testified before them and said, do you share the voter information
I remember that.
with private entities? And he's like, well, we share it with universities and stuff like that. Oh, we also shared it with this private organization, CEIR, in order to conduct election research, right? Or no, it was experimentation or something like that. And I went through and read the experimentation, and it's like, how are people going to respond when they receive a mailer to register to vote? Like that kind of stuff. It was so stupid. They basically shared it with an NGO that is, weaponized against. I think it's a purely political organization They got $70 million of Zuckerbucks in 2020. CEIR did. Everybody
That's
talks
crazy,
about,
dude.
yeah,
Voter data should be completely off limits to any entity. That once you go and you place it, whatever the situation is, whether it's DMV, whatever the case may be, that's where it stays. That's where it ends. It doesn't go anywhere further. No third parties. No, and it should stop there. It's insane, man.
Yeah, and so CEIR, we talk about the 400 million or whatever it was that CTCL, Center for Tech and Civic Life, got, but CEIR got a lot too, and disproportionately dispersed that $70 million to the swing states. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia were the top four, and the other top four of six. The other two were, I think, New Jersey and New York. I believe were the six in total. I wrote about this. It was one of the first articles I ever had published. But by Uncover DC. It was titled "The Voter Rolls Are Key," and part of that funding for CEIR in Michigan, especially, was used to develop real-time monitoring of the voter rolls, so that, and this is where they get you, because they're like, oh, we only did it. We had a reason why we did it. We only did it so we could stop texting you after you voted. So they knew in real time, once you voted, to take you off of the list, and then they could go through and just text all the people that haven't voted yet and remind them to vote. But again, I'll remind you, and this goes back to Patty McMurray's discovery with the documents in Michigan, the ballots they received in Wayne County that we had on Why We Vote last week. 26,000, almost 27,000 mail-in ballots in Michigan that don't have envelopes. And, this was part of the Jesse Morgan truck thing. We had a similar story in Michigan where ballots were dropped off in the middle of the night, no destination or origin, no origin. And, if you can run those through the machine, and the machines in Michigan have the voter rolls in the system. This was, part of the DePerno case up in Antrim County. You can assign those ballots, voters.
And there was a lot of things that, again, I'm not an election expert to that process. I would say I know enough, but the remember the mail-in ballots that didn't have any folds?
Oh yeah. Those in Georgia.
Like you don't have to be an election expert to be like, what the Frank?
Right. Yeah.
How do you have a mail-in ballot and there's no fold? And if I remember correctly, it was like hundreds of them.
Oh, it was batches of them. That was Susan Voiles that testified to that, signed a sworn affidavit, and GBI went in, took a look at a few of them, and was like, "Yeah, we don't see what you're looking for, lady. We don't see what you're looking for." That's also the same organization where the director of the GBI got a judgeship from. We talked about this on Why We Vote last night. That was the Kemp expose from the Purdue deposition in the Trump RICO case that I broke that story. That was the same GBI that investigated that. So yeah, the whole thing is corrupt top to bottom, man. And when I go back, like the article I wrote this morning for Gateway on the CIA documents, it just tells me the whole thing is it's corrupted from its core. And I think a lot of it's going to tie back to the intelligence community. So we will see what happens. But to stay on the voter registration thing here, Alpha, this is what we were alluding to with Marquayne Mullins, DHS. He put this out the day after Trump's speech, saying 250,000 non-citizens found on voter rolls in 4 states as Jocelyn Benson refuses to share the data. Now let's fast forward to this post here on X from Missy in SoCal. Missy is MAGA. Put this out, and these are the screenshots of the letter. So here we've got Homeland Security on July 16th. To Pennsylvania, there may be as many as 14,576 non-citizens registered to vote in Pennsylvania. Fast forward to, this is Nevada. There may be as many as 15,900 non-citizens in Nevada. As many as 190,000 non-citizens in California. And then we get back to New Jersey, where we just found 6,600 between that 1-year window. 35,000 non-citizens may be registered in New Jersey.
So, the part that kind of caught my attention with the 250,000 or 250,000, that's what that is, right? That's with 4 states that cooperated. And I would imagine that if these states are cooperating, that they've probably already maybe instituted measures to minimize these kind of errors. And even in that situation, still 250,000. What's that number going to look like in the states that do not want to cooperate? I know that they're providing these basic numbers in the letters that you read to us. But again, if we know that there's active efforts, and again, again, this is my speculation. I don't want to hang Badlands on anything to get sued. But my speculation is that there's active efforts, not glitches, not errors, not system failures, that there's active errors to conceal how this happened. Like, these numbers are going to be astronomical, dude.
Yeah. I think they're going to be really, really bad. And you know what the whole root cause of it is going to be?
The machines.
No, automatic voter registration. It's an absurd concept. It needs to be abolished. Abolished. You know, the idea that when you go and interact with any government agency, they have the ability to register you to vote. And here's the thing. They're only supposed to do it if you consent to registering to vote. You check the box. But we know that that's not true. We know that that's not true. Ash and I last year, or no, this was before the midterms, or the primaries for 2024. We had a woman from Nevada on the program, and she was saying that her and her husband went to go register to vote, or no, excuse me, her and her husband went to go get a driver's license in Nevada, and they explicitly checked the box not to vote, and then found out that a couple days later, her husband was actually registered to vote as a Democrat after, checking the box not to. And oh, by the way, I saw this story, hat tip to Jennifer Asper sending me this, J3669 on X. Reno Gazette Journal, Nevada DMV uses vendor in New Jersey non-citizen voting, but not for voter ID. New Jersey doesn't use them for voter ID. They use them for the DMV. The automatic voter registration registers them to vote. Nobody's talking about voter ID. What a deceptive headline. What a deceptive headline. It says more than 6,600. They recap the story here. Non-citizen residents in Nevada recently spotlighted by the DHS claim that they have 16,000 non-citizens registered to vote. Jump down here. And it says Nevada uses IDE MIA 2. Contacted by the Reno Gazette Journal, Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles said it does not use IDEMA for identity verification or voter registration eligibility determinations. Neither did the DMV. This was just their software. The DMV actually does the job. It's just IDMA wrote the software for them, sourced out the software. IDEMA is only used for the production of physical credentials such as driver's license and ID cards. Oh, so just like New Jersey, like the same thing as New Jersey. I mean, look, this is all very new. There's going to be a lot to unpack on this. There's going to be a lot of investigations into this. There's going to be citizen investigations. I know I started plugging away on this morning. I saw this post here. This was put up by John Gillette, a representative in Arizona State Legislature. And I thought this was really interesting here. This part right here in the middle. Let me scroll
down.
Is that
on X?
What's that?
Is that on X?
Yes.
Yes. Shoot that one to me too when you have a chance, man.
I will. I thought this was really interesting. Confirmed IDEMA MVD credential contracts for systems. Arizona contracts for driver's license systems, mobile ID, central issuance, and testing. And then you jump down here and just a reminder. And again, I don't necessarily know, I can't attribute this to them, but just a reminder that an audit found in 218,000 voter records affected by citizenship coding and design errors in the MVD modernization that took place a while back. The coding/design errors in the MVD and voter system, similar risk points as New Jersey. IDEMA is deeply embedded in the MVD infrastructure. Again, I'll dig into that more after the show, but I thought that was very interesting. And I've got a call out to that representative now to try and get in touch with him about that. Let's now jump into the DOJ responded right away. Harmeet Dillon, Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, stated that 400 non-citizen voters voted in an election. It's unacceptable and illegal. And let me pull this letter up here real quick because a couple things catch my eye in this letter, Alpha. And the first one is that the DOJ is now requesting the full names, date of births, nationalities, residential addresses, and registration dates and locations. That's key. Dates and locations where they registered for the 6,600 individuals, Also, they're requesting for the 400 individuals that voted when and where they voted. And if by mail, they want the certification and signature required under New Jersey statutes. Now, that's really interesting, Alpha, because I put this out on X last night and said, I will bet you that if there's an actual investigation into those envelopes from those 400 people, if they voted by mail, and I bet you a majority of them are going to have been votes by mail, I'll bet you the signatures don't match their signature.
I would agree with that. I just got an alert from Just the News. Again, it's set up for West Coast time, so maybe you already know it, but it's exactly what you're talking about right now. On the vendor stuff out of New Jersey, that the vendor is now saying these are false claims, that it's New Jersey that approves it. So I don't know if you saw that. I was trying to find it so I could send it to you.
Yeah, I did see that this morning. Again, this is going to be a story that we probably talk about for a few days here. So yeah, we'll have more updates, tomorrow morning on Badlands Daily as well. Also follow me on X at Canncon. I'll be updating there. I'll probably be writing about it some more as well. But there's another little interesting thing right here, Alpha, and I love this one. Further, we will also be informing the District Court in United States v. Caldwell of today's disclosure. It provides an additional basis for the Civil Rights Division to obtain an electronic copy of New Jersey's statewide voter registration list, which to date, New Jersey election officials have failed to produce pursuant to the Civil Rights Act of 1960. So we know the Civil Rights Division has these cases going on in 30 states. I bet you those states align pretty closely with the ERIC system, but 30 states where they're having to sue in order to get access to these voter rolls. Now, New Jersey's going to be like, hey, Your Honor, they can't handle this. The only reason they caught this is because of Marquain Mullins coming out and saying we're going to prosecute you if we find illegals that have voted. And they're like, oh, crap, we better CYA, cover your ass. 400 people illegally voted in 2024, guys. We just want to disclose that right now.
Which is why Mickey went out there and threw them under the bus.
Exactly.
The headline, I sent it to you in the chat. The headline says, software vendor disputes New Jersey governor's glitch claim, says state approves foreigners on the voter roll.
This is probably a very short article. We'll jump into it real quick here. So there's the article. Just hours after New Jersey Democrat Sherrill blamed the software glitch, IDEMA, the software vendor for New Jersey, issued a statement saying it was the responsibility of the state government, which is completely controlled by Democrats, to verify eligibility. IDEMIA works with the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission and has more than 40 years to support the process through which eligible individuals may indicate their interest in registering to vote. When applying for renewing a driver's license, IDEMIA's role is to transmit information through the motor vehicle system. The voter registration information is transmitted to the New Jersey Department of State, Division of Elections, which is ultimately responsible for verifying eligibility to vote. Information submitted by IDEMIA must still be validated and adjudicated by the Division of Elections. These individuals answered no. Okay, so that's just a rehash there. So that's just a blanket denial, which
the hot potato right back. That's what that is.
No, this is fantastic to watch, man, because this has been, one of their strongest talking points on elections. We don't need to pass the Save America Act. We don't need to proof of citizenship. That's a very rare thing. That is such a rare thing that happens. Here's speaking of very rare thing that happens. Here's Jake Tapper on CNN a while back saying the same thing.
The Republicans here are talking about a solution to a non-existent problem. Again, Jake, to make it very clear, this country does not have a problem of election security in any measurable level, and certainly not based on people coming from other countries.
Right, it happens, but at very, very minuscule numbers. It's not a serious threat when it comes to election security. Again, it happens, but very seldom.
Vanishingly small. I mean, it is so small that it's just beyond compare. And
it's vanishingly small. Well, he had a slightly different tune last
The Republicans here are talking about
But Mikey Sherrill, the governor of New Jersey, made this announcement today. A surprising announcement. Nearly 400 non-citizens voted in New Jersey elections as a result of what she calls a serious software error. Governor Sherrill posted this quote,
As the Trump administration tries to weaponize elections for political gain, I am ensuring we protect our elections. She goes on to say the difference is simple. When we find a problem, we don't hide it, deny it, or invent conspiracies. We investigate it, we fix it, and we tell the public. I have to say, though, for Democrats, I'm not saying that the Save America, the Save Act is going to pass.
Yeah.
But this is not good for Democrats' argument that there's no such thing as undocumented immigrants voting.
This is not good for our country generally, I would
Right.
say.
Even better.
And it is not, this is a terrible problem to have. I think.
I wish I could get more of that clip, but unfortunately I couldn't find any more of that clip.
Panic, man. Panic. And it is glorious to witness.
Mr. Mark Elias, same thing. This was an article back in July of 2024. So this was after they had
I would
just
love to see this guy end
that.
up in handcuffs, man.
Yeah, this wasn't written by him, but Courtney Cohn for Democracy Docket, debunking the myths surrounding non-citizen voting. Many Republicans claim enough non-citizens are voting in U.S. elections to influence the results. There's two major issues. First, it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections, and there's no concrete evidence that large numbers of non-citizens are voting. Second, these requirements don't just keep non-citizens from voting. They also stop eligible voters who don't have easy access to citizenship documents like passports and birth certificates from voting. They're going to have a little bit of egg on their face over the next couple of days because this. Go ahead.
I would love to use the Second Amendment to throw that argument back in their face.
Oh, man.
Because why do you create all these additional weapons laws when there's already one broad law that prevents certain people from having firearms? According to your argument, that's unnecessary.
Yeah. You know, I still pose the question, Alpha, and I think this is the most important question that nobody is asking regarding the New Jersey thing. And I'll reiterate it again from earlier in the program. We know that these 6,600 people checked on the box. No, they are not U.S. citizens, and they were still registered to vote. What happens if they checked yes and they're not U.S. citizens? Does anybody know? Is anybody checking? Is anybody going behind and saying, hey, you checked yes on this? What indicators would there even be that they're non-citizens that are registered to vote? Like, the problem is there's no checks. It's a trust me system. It is a trust me system. And, you know, we often talk about how your vote is the most important thing you do in our civic society, right? It's the most important thing you do, getting out there and exercising your right to vote. And here we are, the only check to ensure that you're a citizen when you check that automatic voter registration is you saying, I swear I'm a citizen. Can you get caught, you know, if that doesn't happen? Well, there's only been dozens of people across the whole country that have been caught. And then, you know, the last thing is what happens if you leave that box blank? And that's, you know, something I've wondered quite a bit. Can somebody go behind and check it for you and just automatically fill it in? Or does it have a default to yes? You know, those kinds of things. But I think that's it. All I've got on this. If you have any closing thoughts on the.
I agree with you on those two specific questions to that box. You know, for those that are, you know, do battle on the virtual world of X, you know, they just rolled out their X money. And if you want to be a part of that process, you show your driver's license front and back. And then after that, you do a facial recognition, left profile, right profile, straight. Verifies that compared to your driver's license. Takes place in less than 120 seconds, right? You're telling me that these institutions can't implement something like that at a minimum? Granted, I think there's this, you know, goes back to there should not be automated registration. I agree with you completely on that. But in the situations where it exists, you're telling me you can't do things that are at a minimum to ensure additional safety measures? Of course they can. They choose not to. And the choose not to is, I think, what ultimately answers your question, because they don't want to find it.
Let me. I agree with that. The whole system is set up for plausible deniability, but also to allow the fraud to permeate into the system. Ash in the chat said that I got to watch this clip, so let's play this.
He's been in office for a full year now. They have not come up with any of this purported evidence of voter fraud. You guys are in search of something that there's been no evidence exists. New Jersey is double checking its voter rolls tonight after a software error added 6,600 non-citizens to the voter rolls. The suggestion that this is fraud suggests that these people were trying to vote. Sometimes what happens is that when state systems are incorrect, people receive information and they are confused. Where some people who are ineligible to vote are not aware that they're ineligible to vote. I do think it's whether it is widespread or not matters. I do think that the numbers actually matter.
There's another.
I don't know if I came into this country illegally, and I don't know if I'm an American or not who should be voting. Are you serious? Are these things that tells you what they think of the intelligence levels of their viewers?
Now, I've made the argument before that I could see maybe in a couple circumstances, not widespread, not 6,600 people, that may be like, oh, well, I have a green card, so I was able to go and get a driver's license. I was able to get an ETIN number or a TIN number, taxpayer identification number, which is almost like a social. I was able to get all these things, so I'm probably okay to vote, and they might have checked the box. Handful of people.
I would say no. I would say no. And here's why I would say no. And I would say maybe a very minuscule, like a percentage of a percentage.
Fraction of a percentage. I agree with that.
Chances are these same people are on public social services.
Right.
And when they go to apply at public social services, and I know this because I did it for a few years, it's very clear what your citizenship status is. Because every month, not once a year, every month when you do these forms, it gives you those same options. And there's clearly one that says citizen that you never check because your caseworker would call you back and be like, hey, what's going on here? So I would say a percentage of a percentage because, and again, I understand I'm doing a generality, but this is one that I think I'm going to be pretty accurate on.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Excuse me. I don't disagree. But again, not all of them are on, public welfare and stuff like that. You got a lot of H-1B visa guys that are here making really good money and just may not know. And again, it's no excuse whatsoever. In fact, that's more of a testament to why we need something like proof of citizenship in order to register to vote, why we need to dump the voter rolls completely. Everybody's got to go re-register. Sorry, guys, it might be an inconvenience. I think most of our listeners will be like, that's fine. I'll do it. I don't care. But it has to be done. It has to be done.
Get rid of all the H-1B visas.
What's that?
Get rid of all the visas.
Oh yeah, I'm not opposed to that either. Let's just watch this one clip. I found this when I was looking for what Ash was talking about, and I have no idea what she's going to say here. But let's watch this one.
What's your definition of widespread, by the way? Is it 1%? Is it 2%?
I don't know. More than 100? I think it's a big problem. What's yours?
What's your tolerance for this?
Hold on. This is not about tolerance. This is about, is it widespread or is it something that is relatively rare?
You're pounding him over the word widespread. I just would ask you, Scott, what is your tolerance for any fraud at all?
Is it widespread?
Absolutely. Over 6,000 people.
What is your bar for widespread?
She said, my bar is I want no tolerance. Okay. I have zero tolerance.
So what is your tolerance for American citizens?
By the way, this isn't the only place this is happening.
What is your tolerance for American citizens whose valid voter registrations are invalidated by incorrect databases? What's your tolerance for that?
I don't have tolerance for any mistakes in the electoral system, including putting non-citizens on the rolls.
So then why are we not keeping the same energy for that as we are for this?
I do have energy. As you know, I've come out here and long argued that every time we don't clean up the voter rolls, that every time a non-citizen makes it onto the voter rolls, it invalidates some legal person's vote.
What about when an American is not allowed to vote when they are eligible to vote?
I don't have any tolerance for that either. An American citizen should be allowed to vote. But American citizens are invalidated.
Why are you okay then with the amendment?
Okay, so that's actually a good debate because the leftist talking point on this issue is always, well, you're going to take valid voters off the rolls. No, you're not. There's a process that they've proposed to go through this. There's like letters that get sent to you, numerous letters. I think it's 3 letters that they were proposing to challenge, to verify your eligibility to vote. If you get flagged in the system, then there's processes you have to go through. And again, I'll take it a step further, dump the entire thing, start from scratch. Start from then there's no disenfranchisement. There's no argument that, oh, you guys only went after me because I'm black or Hispanic or a woman or whatever. Everybody gone.
I support that 100%, and I think we're probably going to see that.
I think so too. Okay, let's move on. And that was I did not plan on spending 45 minutes on Mikey Sherrill.
Listen, this is going to be, especially because the Save America Act deadline is approaching. And so this conversation on our elections is, this is going to be conversations all the way at a minimum to November 3rd, because more information is going to get declassed. John Solomon already came out and said it, and he's a part of the people reviewing these things.
The next one that drops, Alpha, and you're going to see this happen again. New Jersey is not going to be the first state that comes out with this expose. You're going to see this again, whether it's California, whether it's Michigan, whether it's Pennsylvania. You're going to see this happen again, where a governor comes out and is like, crap, the DHS was right. We made a mistake, but we own it. We took the high road here. No, you're just covering your own ass, and it's going to happen again. And when it happens again, this is shockwaves. It's going to be an avalanche after the next one. So, all right, let's jump into this story here from Just the News. Like the FBI on terrorism after 9/11, Trump is pressing feds to stop fraudulent payments beforehand. I hate that headline so much, but I love the first part of it. The Treasury Department announced that it has blocked nearly $100 million in federal payments to deceased individuals before they could be issued. Quote, President Trump issued an executive order for us to be able to go to the do not pay to have it interact with the Treasury payment system, said Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. And as a result, so far, we've saved about $100 million in payments that did not go to deceased people and that would have otherwise gone out. We think there's up to $350 million that we can stop before the end of this year. Treasury screened over 885 million payments, totaling about 2.77 trillion, and flagged roughly 4,900 payments tied to deceased individuals. Payment programs like Social Security and Medicare, they go out automatically previously, and then later on you'll audit them and be like, oh, look, there's mistakes here. And then the government tries to claw it back, which is often with very limited success, and they end up writing it off as waste. Well, under the new system, the goal is to integrate real-time or near real-time using the Death Master file into Do Not Pay so that the system flags and stops the payments before they're issued. It's designed to disrupt upstream, not just investigate downstream. I feel like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're just now coming to the realization that, hey, maybe we should try and prevent sending payments out to dead people rather than just look at it after the fact and be like, well, they're dead. So what are we going to do? We can't claw it back. It's remarkable how incompetent this government has been up until that moment in that regard.
You got to identify the problem to then institute the measures to stop it. It's, in all fairness, if you got let's just say you got good Americans that have stepped into these positions, right? And this is the way it's always operated. And they're saying, hey, we're looking for, the fraud and stuff after the fact. You don't know what you don't know, right? Because you don't think that when you go into these agencies, you don't think they're corrupt, right? You don't have that expectation. I'm looking for fraud from within, unless you're in that specific department. You're not looking for that. And I think this is something that's going to have to be trained throughout all of our agencies.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of Health and Human Services Secretary RFK announced that they're deferring more than $1 billion in federal Medicaid payments to California and Minnesota over suspected fraud and noncompliance, requiring the state to provide documents proving high-risk claims are legitimate before spending the money. So again, that's the way that this should go. Now, here's the part that pisses me off about this article. By contrast, before 9/11, the FBI and the other broader intelligence community operated to investigate crimes after they happened, gather evidence, and then prosecute. Following 9/11, that changed. Those attacks exposed massive failures in information sharing, pattern recognition, proactive disruption, leading to reforms like the Patriot Act, fusion centers, and an emphasis on intelligence analysis over pure casework, and a quote, prevent, prepare, and respond doctrine. The goal became stopping attacks before they occur, not just solving them afterwards. Now, I've got the authoritarian brain alpha here, so I know you're already going to take the side of the FBI in this, but hear me out. My problem isn't the preemptive investigations and stuff like this into it. My problem is this laid the groundwork for entrapment. This laid the groundwork for a lot of these cases where the FBI pushes you, hashtag Minnesota, hashtag the Stinger rockets in New, I think it was in Massachusetts, where they basically went into a mosque and said to this guy, hey, I can get you Stinger missiles that you could shoot down aircraft. And the guy's like, oh, cool, let's do it. And then they give him the missiles. Or the autist in, I can't remember where the autist was, 19-year-old kid. And they're like, hey, you want to be the next Timothy McVeigh and blow up this federal building? And the guy's like, no, not really. He's like, come on, we'll give you all the van. Okay, let's do it. And they give him a van filled with fake explosives. Or how Police State, Dinesh D'Souza's documentary opens with the guy that was like, I'm a construction dude. They offered me $50,000 to do this stuff, and I took the money and ran. And it was an entrapment. So I'll land that there because I know you're going to be like, no, we need precogs. We need pre-crime. Minority Report.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Listen, this is why you have to have good people working in those capacities. And the reason being is it's a very subjective realm because everything you articulated is true. And those are legitimate concerns, and we've seen evidence that they exist. It's not hyperbole. But on the counter side of that, you also had people like myself and others that understand the intent of the law and understand the mission. Because, again, I can go and use the same scenario where you said, hey, man, let's go, boom, boom, a building, right? Because I know we're on different platforms, right? And the guy that I'm working says, no, man, no. Well, not because it's entrapment, but because there's already the expectation that I know undercovers come and do these things and present those kind of questions. So I'm going to say no initially, just in case I am working with an undercover agent or an asset. And so then as an investigator, it's okay, well, then I'll revisit this and I'll present it a different way to see, because there could be other information supporting that this guy was trying to elicit this type of, ammonium nitrate or so whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of context that's required there. So I'm not going to minimize your concern because it's real. I experienced it personally, but I also understand that you need guys working those kind of operations because they really will stop and locate people that mean this country harm. But it comes down to the person that's wearing the badge.
Well, like Ash said, and I was going to cite this as well, James Madison, if men were angels, government would be unnecessary. I agree with that. However, when you look at a lot of these cases here, and you're right, you first start off by saying no, just in case, cover your ass in case something does come of this. But when you look at historically the programs that the government's put forward, Mockingbird, MK Ultra, when you put forward those types of remote neurological monitoring, all these programs to manipulate people's minds. The pharmaceutical industry, SSRIs, I believe, are another form of MK Ultra. I believe that if we dug deep enough, we would find out that those are a continuation of MK Ultra. And
I wouldn't disagree with that. I would say 99% of them are. And this is why we have a check and balances. Is this the whole thing's been corrupted? Because after the law enforcement does this, then the judicial part kicks in where they review that case. So even if I had good intentions and missed it, a prosecutor's supposed to look at this and be like, hey, man, this kind of looks like this guy wouldn't have done it. I'm going through the report. It looks like he wouldn't have done this. Tell me on why you kept pushing him. What's missing in this report that you kept pushing him? And maybe there is a something to articulate there from the investigator. Well, we have this and we have this. Okay, well, let's include that in supplemental reports because that matters. And in the absence of that, that's when a prosecutor says, I'm not going this route because from what I'm seeing here, this guy wouldn't have done it absent you guys is trying to push it. The system's supposed to work that way, but it's been corrupted.
But the system feeds itself. And so, going back to the basis of which they, that article was founded on, 9/11, an inside job. I think anybody that doesn't believe 9/11 at the very least was allowed to take place. I fully believe, I'm fully on board with Codex 9/11, with the, with the research that was done in that documentary. And so, that being said, that is what enabled all of this pre-crime stuff to take place. The pre-investigations, instead of investigating a crime, finding a criminal before the crime occurred. And again, the reason that I think this is so problematic is because you create crime in order to bolster your agency, right? The FBI does not survive unless the FBI is finding crime. And once we got to that point where they're tasked with finding it, they're going to perpetuate their existence. They're going to continue their existence. And how do they do that? They go out there and they entrap people. And that's why I just saw a story today about 2 more victims of the FBI entrapment in Michigan. The Whitmer kidnapping have been identified. Now, I didn't read the article, so I don't know the details on it, but it's a system that will feed itself, much like the military industrial complex, right? Much like the pharmaceutical industrial complex. You create problems so you can manufacture solutions. And I feel like that's where, and I didn't mean to go on this long conversation about this. The last thing I'll ask you, Alpha, do you believe that it's better for one wrongfully accused man to be imprisoned than 100 men to go free?
Say that again.
Do you believe it's better that I should say that the other way around? Do you believe it's better that 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man be imprisoned?
Absolutely.
You believe it's better that okay, so that's good. So you're on.
Yeah, and the reason is I thought you were asking me. I've been asked this before. It's because those 100 bad guys, they're going to reoffend anyway, so I'm still going to get them anyways.
Good call. Good call. Okay, let's move on. I want to stay on the finances here for a second and talk about this Project on Government Oversight report that came out, tracking taxpayer dollars, fixing a flawed system for federal spending data. This originated from a just the news story as well. So giving the hat tip there, but I go deeper, usually when I can. And hold on one second. I got a tab that I got to get my bottom thing. There we go. Okay. So let me pull this back up. Highlighted findings. And this is going through direct payments, federal grants, and other spending by the federal government to states and whatever. The vast majority of federal grant spending cannot be tracked down to the local level. 74% of federal grant funding could not be tracked to any local level, zip code, city, or county in their review. That accounts for $712.6 billion in federal spending that the public cannot tell exactly where it went beyond the state location. Subaward reporting, required by federal law, should also explain where federal funds go after being awarded to intermediary recipients such as state agencies. However, the subaward data is fundamentally broken and incomplete, offering little to no additional information on the flow of the federal funds. Prime awards only had a local level data for 20.7 or 198 billion of the awarded federal grants, and subaward data only accounted for 5% or 47.6 billion. So out of the $712 billion, only 198 has a prime award data where the money's going, and 5% of that, $47 billion, has the subaward data. So when it goes from the state to the local jurisdiction, the data on that. The vast majority of direct payments were trackable. So this is like this isn't a grant that's given to NGOs, state agencies, et cetera. This is direct payments. Those transactions should provide specific details and context. Instead, are most often uninformative duplicate entries. So the direct payments are good in terms of, going to the right places. It says they're trackable for 96.1% of the federal funds that are spent through that type of award, which is good. 96.1 is pretty good. But the specific details are woefully inadequate, with 97% of the 2.4 million reviewed transactions using the same description or a duplicate description, meaning just copy and paste, send them money, copy and paste. California, same thing as Florida, same thing as so-so. Direct payment loan programs reported unique descriptions for just 0.15% and 0.01% of transactions, respectively. And then the last highlight on this, just look at these numbers right here. Can you see that chart? Let me zoom in.
Yeah, zoom in, yeah.
Look at this chart, man. You want to see waste, fraud, and abuse? Direct payments, domestic spending, $2.9 trillion. 96% trackable. Grants, almost $1 trillion, 959 billion, only 20% trackable. Loans, 97% trackable. That's pretty good. Cooperative agreements, only 43% trackable, but that's only $18 billion. No big deal. I think that's a crazy report right there, man. I was reading that this morning, and I might not have articulated that very well, but
when people are rich on stolen money, man, that's crazy.
Dude.
That's crazy. We're out here struggling. People are killing themselves to have their money stolen.
That's crazy.
That one pisses me off, bro. That one. Listen, we work hard, man, and I know there's some people in the audience. You worked your entire life to at a minimum just have a nest egg, just so you can, live in your own home that's still getting freaking taxed, and to realize that a quality of life for all of us could be not a little different, significantly different if our government wasn't stealing from us. It's infuriating, dude.
Yeah, I have no idea why my screen's getting crazy here. We'll stay on this kind of subject broadly for a second here, but I do want to hit a sponsor before we do that. And let's go ahead and jump in and talk about our friends over at Rumble Wallet. Guys, we hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part that most people miss. Crypto was created so you could actually own and control your money after the 2008 financial crisis. Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of banks holding your money, delaying transfers, or limiting access, you are in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you felt that problem. Now, fast forward to today, and everybody's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels kind of complicated. That's exactly why I use Rumble Wallet. It takes all the complexity and makes it simple. Choose what you want, whether it's Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. There's no complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank and be up and running in just minutes. Once you're set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like us directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description below and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and boom, you're in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. All right. And let's go ahead and jump into this story. So we talked about, all the government waste, fraud, and abuse that's out there in existence. Wouldn't you know, the House passes a stopgap measure to fund the federal government. Going on almost Alpha next year. This is the last continuing resolution before we hit the 30-year anniversary of the same continuing resolution. I believe 1997 was the date for the continuing resolution that we're currently. Now, granted, there's a lot more added to it and they take some things out, but basically their way of just saying, let's kick the can down the road. The House passed a stopgap measure that would fund federal agencies at existing levels through December 4th in an effort to avert a potential government shutdown before the end of the fiscal year on September 30th. Over in the Senate, Republican and Democratic appropriators have yet to break through an impasse over government funding. Our conference refuses to let the obstruction and inaction of the Senate Democrats trigger another manufactured shutdown at the end of September, and that is why we are acting before a funding lap crisis, not in response to it, says House Appropriations Chair Tom Cole in remarks. The measure now heads to the Senate, where it faces long odds amid the chamber's 60-vote threshold. Now, of course, we are 2 months away from September, so hey guys, in the Senate, you got 2 months now to get this bill figured out. The House actually got it passed relatively quick, but they're never the ones that are the huge holdup. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But there's no doubt in my mind that, ahead of the midterm elections, the Democrats are going to do everything they can to try and shut this thing down so that they can, dangle that over the midterm elections. Hey, we're having elections right now while the government's shut down, and it's all the Republicans' fault. You gotta love it. You gotta love it, man. Here's another shocking story, man. So yesterday we got the why am I getting notifications now on this? I hate this. It screws up my whole computer. Yesterday or the day before, we got the Una Panuna Banca story about not vetting congressional staffers, which to me is just absolutely mind-blowing. Well, here's another
insane.
It is that is one of the most insane things I think I've heard in the last, maybe year or so in terms of our government. And just for all the fans out there. We got
anybody that works in any capacity of the government, all the way to include the janitor, maintenance, should have a thorough background check of that of a police officer at a minimum.
More.
That's what I'm saying. At a minimum,
more.
When I heard this, I was like, no, that ain't right. There's no way.
That one of the questions I would ask about that is, a lot of these staffers have security clearances, right? A lot of them have clearances to be read in on, to sit in on meetings that are top secret, at least secret level, right? Maybe they all get security clearances, so they're all vetted through that process. I don't know. That's something I would inquire more about. Maybe
it depends how they're doing it, because if they're getting a background packet and that background packet shows they're an existing employee with the federal government, then that means, okay, we're going to do this tier, which is more of a cursory background check, because the assumption is that this, kind of like the check the boxes, right? This means that all this should already be included in this amount of information. I mean, I don't know. But obviously it's not, because look at the issue that we're running into with these staffers.
I mean,
these are things that would have been picked up.
When I went through my screening, they were very thorough, and I was active duty at the time. And I've been interviewed by FBI after the fact for, Marines I served with that went on to federal service, parks and FBI and stuff like that. And as their team leader and squad leader, I was investigated, or not investigated, questioned about them.
Interviewed.
Yeah, interviewed. There you go, interviewed. And so, I mean, maybe, I guess, if they get to the congressional level, there's an assumption and it's cursory, but it's still something that needs to be inquired. Like, we need to figure out, because that makes it far worse, actually, if it's just cursory investigations into clearances, for staffers. That's highly concerning. And that's how you get spy infiltration. That's how you get lobbyists inserted into positions to promote agendas on behalf of foreign governments and foreign interests. Yeah, that's bonkers, man. So here's another one that's bonkers. Speaker Johnson endorses a ban on lawmaker relationships with all staff, not just their own subordinates. Johnson replied, yeah, when he was asked whether he's on board with the House GOP conference chair, Lisa McClain, in support of establishing new rules barring members from having sex with any congressional staff. The path forward would require a revision to the House's official code of conduct. The House in 2018 opted to formally ban members from having intimate relationships with their subordinates in personal offices or on the committees on which the lawmakers serve. This latest path is partly a response to Senator Ruben Gallego's relationship with staffers who were not under his supervision. Also, of course, Eric Swalwell, who sexually assaulted a staffer, and then former Representative Tony Gonzalez, whose sexual relationship with a woman in his congressional office may or may not have led to her alleged death by suicide. Alleged suicide, I should say. Her death by alleged suicide. Should add that there. That's another one, because, going off just background checks on staffers, the other way that they'll do that, you get a hot intern. I texted this to a Telegram message to Ash this morning. We talk about that show Scandal, all the time. This was an episode of Scandal. This was an episode of Scandal where the congressmen have a list of interns who are bangable. And if they put out, they make one list. If they don't put out, they make another list. And if you're on the list of people of, interns and staffers who don't put out, you're not going anywhere. And I mean, we're literally just another episode of Scandal being brought out, the playbook for the deep state. If you haven't watched that show, you need to watch that show.
I've never even heard of it. That's just
such a good show, man. So, dude, it's got the election fraud, like vote machines flipping is the whole concept of like one of the seasons. Air Force One getting hijacked. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Like, man, you got to watch this show. It's atrocious. It's like a daytime soap opera in terms of how it's written, but it's so prophetic.
Makes me wonder. Soft disclosure.
Yeah. Well, here's another story here from Fox News. Democrat Epstein class attack backfires as top candidates funded by Epstein-tied billionaire. Enter Reid Hoffman. Well, James Tallarico and John Ossoff are facing scrutiny over significant donations from the LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman. Both Tallarico and Ossoff have repeatedly criticized billionaire involvement in politics and charged Republicans with being beholden to the Epstein class instead of the American people. Now, the Ossoff donations was $7,000 in Georgia that Hoffman donated to his campaign, the maximum allowable donation. But holy crap, listen to this about James Tallarico and tell me you don't see the steel getting set up here, the narrative being laid. In Texas Senate race, Hoffman has donated a whopping $11.5 million to the Tallarico-aligned super PAC, Lone Star Rising. This attributed, the billionaire attributed, sunk $10 million in June alone, accounting for nearly 80% of the group's second quarter fundraising. Now, this is a race against Ken Paxton, the attorney general in Texas, that a lot of the talking heads out there are saying, oh, well, Tallarico could flip Texas purple, right? And win the Senate seat for Texas. Meanwhile, 80% of his super PAC is being funded by one person. That's crazy, man. Like, only 20% of your fundraising comes from other people, and this could still be large donors because super PACs, you can donate as much as you want. Thanks, Citizen United. We appreciate that. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, man. There's a lot going on in Texas. Keep your eyes on Texas. Here's what I will say. That people, I'm biting my tongue on some stuff just because I don't know what stuff's been said. But what I will say is there are people neck deep in monitoring this situation with Paxton and Tallarico, and they are well aware of these things. So,
do you think Hoffman is trying to fill a void where Act Blue is no longer present, and so there's not this facade that when Act Blue money dried up because of the investigations, that look, Democrats actually don't have any support. It's all laundered money from overseas. And so Hoffman comes in, he's like, here's $10 million just to make it look like there's no gap in the fundraising for your super PAC. I don't know.
I think it's very possible. I think the other thing too is I think these kind of donations have already been in play for quite some time. They just were harder to see because of the massive amount of money laundering coming in through things like Act Blue. And now in the absence of that, these things stick out now. I think that could be what we're seeing too.
I don't disagree with that. It goes on to just lay out that Hoffman and Epstein first met up in July of 2013, 5 years after Epstein pled guilty in Florida for soliciting prostitution, procuring a minor for prostitution. And then the next year, Hoffman visited Little St. James and stayed overnight. And then, of course, there's the ice cream that he sent to him, which is just weird. Like,
I'm not familiar with the ice cream. Refresh my memory on this one.
I don't remember the exact details. It mentions it down here. It says the Wall Street Journal reported in 2014 that Hoffman sent Epstein ice cream writing that it was for him or quote unquote for the girls. Yeah, supposedly like he sent him like ice cream. Dude, there's all sorts of these references. The special cake. Remember the one where the guy went and he's like, I don't want to walk into your apartment and find Trump. And he's like, do you want me to bring the special cake from New York? Like there's all sorts of these weird references to desserts. I don't know if we're getting into like Pizzagate conspiracy theory with this or not. I shouldn't say, excuse me, not Pizzagate conspiracy theory, Pizzagate territory with this. The hot dogs and the pasta and all that stuff.
It does handkerchiefs, all that stuff. It takes you back to
Podesta.
Yeah, the young kid.
Ben Swan.
No, he's older now. He got all tattooed. He was
Corey
Justin Bieber.
Bieber, yeah.
A few years ago, he makes a music video of dessert. I think it's even called Dessert. Somebody in the chat will remind me. But in there's a guy that makes an appearance a few times, and people have argued that he shows very strong similarities to a Podesta. Who knows?
Oh, well, I mean, you got the Chester Bennington theory as well. There's all sorts of craziness, man. All right, let's get back to Normieville here. ABC News, DOJ investigating Corey Mills. Again, this is kind of according to sources. Justice Department's investigating Mills, according to multiple sources familiar with the situation. The investigation's about finances, among other things, is in part about his finances. Last November, the House Ethics Committee examined allegations of campaign finance law and sexual misconduct. There is no mention of whether or not this investigation's into sexual misconduct or not, but he will be facing some scrutiny over campaign finance laws. So there we go. And I think that's about it on local stories. Let me just make sure that there's nothing. Actually, there is. Let me highlight this real quick. Did you have anything you wanted to add on Corey Mills?
No, not on that. This just a lot of stories on that one.
Well, I mean, I know I saw this morning Colonel Towner was like, it's about time. And that was kind of interesting.
Listen, I've heard some very concerning things, but I also am aware of some things that he's done that are pretty solid. And you've brought up the Save America Act in Massey, but the guy that beat him to the punch was Corey Mills, to get that repealed. So I'll say this: the jury's still out with me when it comes to him.
Fair enough. I mean, a lot of times when these attacks are waged, it's for a reason, right? So yeah, I'm with you. I don't have I could go the whole Congress is illegitimate route, but I'll just go, I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't know one way or the other. But I will say, we got an Arizona governor primary results. Andy Biggs will be the Republican nominee. So there's a story there. I want to jump into this because I had this story pulled up yesterday and I did not get an opportunity to get to it because, Ash wanted to go off and scold me on Shield and, all those other things. I'm just kidding. But Ash had a great, I'm glad I didn't get to it yesterday because she had a great point on this. So Jeff Clark put this out yesterday, former attorney, acting deputy attorney general. I can't remember the exact title under President Trump. We continue to beat Joe Biden's heavily overcompensated lawyers trying to continue to hide the auto pen presidency. Just minutes ago, we won 2-1 at the DC circuit to let the Biden tapes with the ghostwriter be released to the public. Biden gets until August 3rd to try and convince the Supreme Court to enjoin the DOJ from releasing the tapes to the oversight project. It takes special joy. I take special joy, Jeff Clark does, in the fact that the DC circuit rejected Biden's mock-worthy argument that he possessed a privacy interest in the sound of his own voice. The guy who was president, and sad as that is, and had the largest bully pulpit in the world, for crying out loud. Now, that's a good victory, right? That's a good victory there. But this was really interesting. Ash caught this in the actual decision from the judge, and I'll go actually straight to the ruling itself right here. This part right here, it says the requested materials are germane to the interest. The special counsel relied on the requested materials in both concluding that Biden had retained classified material Oh wait, that's not it. Hold on. Sorry. Actually, I'll read it from what she wrote. I don't know what happened this morning. I think I was reading the whole thing. When a highly visible investigation of a prominent public figure ends in a decision not to charge, the public has a strong interest in evaluating, quote, whether the government had the evidence, but nevertheless pulled its punches. The requested materials are germane to that interest. That is fantastic to hear that. Did the government pull its punches on Joe Biden when Robert Hur said, yep, he had the documents, but he's just a feeble-minded old man and just, harmless, whatever. But also let's keep allowing him to be the quote unquote president, or as Ash would call him, Scrotus of the free world.
Yeah, I don't want my authoritarian comedy.
Sure I do.
Here's what I'll say. If it's for nefarious reasons, I'm on board 100%. But there are circumstances, all right? And don't be surprised if you hear this quote in over the next coming years on multiple occasions. In the interest of justice, there is discretion on the enforcement and the judicial side of things where you can witness certain crimes. There are certain crimes that you cannot do this. The word shall is incorporated. And that's why we've had countless conversations of shoulds and shalls, right? But in situations where the shall is absent, right? And this gets into the letter of the law versus the intent of the law. And this goes a little bit beyond to the next level, is in the interest of justice, plug in the reason that maybe remain classified. And if there's certain deals and things that were made with Biden and maybe upcoming administrations or military or things like that, in the interest of justice, you could see a crime and not charge it.
All right. So, I mean, sure, but don't say that in your ruling. I mean, do you think the appellate court would be briefed on that?
Man, I don't know. I never took it that far.
Like you would before.
I would think as an investigator, yes, I'd call for an in chambers conversation, whatever that looks like at the appellate court. I've never done that like at the appellate court level, but I would be saying, hey, look, Your Honor, we need to have a sit down so you understand why certain decisions were handled. So me, yes, but I don't know. Here's one. Listen, let me bring back. Let me clean up my name here a little bit.
You authoritarian, you.
Because of what I experienced in the tyranny of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, I learned something that I got to experience at a smaller level. At the local stuff that I did. And this is unfortunate. I think this is going to get I think it's being changed. But the FBI and the DOJ, not all those people are as brilliant as we think they are. There's some dumb people in some very powerful positions.
I feel like that if that were the case, that you would have to brief the appellate judges. You'd have to brief them on that. There would be an ex parte, and they wouldn't put something as inflammatory and like with as much patriotic punch as what they put in that remark, man.
I agree, but it's, were these decisions that were off the book decisions, were these things that operate in the gray area? You've heard me talk about wall stops before in law enforcement, and hindsight's always 20/20. I'm completely against those now, but those kind of things exist. So we just don't know. And what I will say is when you look at Biden and you look at some of the comments he's made, and with Trump, his endorsement of Kamala, he completely rug pulled the deep state when he did that, folks. The Kamala was not they didn't want that. And if you guys have watched some of the shows that me and Josh have done, that was Biden pulling the card for Trump when he endorsed Kamala. And that's why you saw so much, there was so much hesitation in the days following his endorsement by people like the Obamas and all this, because he completely forked them when he did that. And so I think The reason we've seen some prosecutions or indictments, the absence of these things, I think it's because in the interest of justice. That's listen, I know people don't like when I say those kind of things. But I'm trying to provide like the real world, like this is the stuff that's going on, good or bad. I'm not arguing the morals and ethics of it. But there is a rhyme and a reason for it.
I just made this real quick while you were talking right there. This is just for you, homie. Oh, wait. There it is.
I'm working on it.
I made you a new thumbnail right there, brother. It's
that as my background.
It's sad.
What's
From
that?
my previous line of work, I know what font that is. That alpha's written in. So if you like that font, I can tell you exactly what it is.
I do like that. Actually, you gotta send it to me. I'm gonna post it.
It's called Crywolf, and I know that font. I also know the alternative because Crywolf is actually a copywritten font, so you have to buy it. Unless
you need to do that test again, because here's what I'll say. I had more faith and trust in the public when I was a cop than I do now. What in the years of me not wearing the badge, I've been more exposed, especially some of the things that I've been involved with and I'm not talking about our audience. Obviously, you guys are brilliant. There's a reason you're here. But man, the vast majority of humanity is forking retarded.
You're not retarded. You're not. I don't think it's that they're retarded. I think they're just ignorant. I think most of them are just ignorant. They don't care. That's the unfortunate thing. And I wonder what happens. Like I look at, Ash and Josh just did their Denver meetup, right? And you look at the photo that came out of there, and most of those people are 50 plus, right? And how do you reach the people that are, the 20s and 30-year-olds? Because they're just not interested. They're not interested in this. And I don't know if it's a cycle of life you go through, because when I was 20 or 30, I was, I wouldn't listen to talk radio or anything like that. My dad did, and I enjoyed it when I rode in the truck with him, and I would listen to it, and I enjoyed it. And I would go through stints where I would listen to, when I was in my 20s, early 20s, where I would listen to Rush like nonstop. I'd go through like 2 months where I'd listen to Rush. And then all of a sudden, like Rush Limbaugh, not the band Rush. And then I would just turn it off and just randomly go back to music and, go back into my cubby hole. And so I don't know if it's something we just go through in cycles of our life. And
I think it is that, it's when we're young, you got all the time in the world because you're going to live forever.
Right.
And, then as you progress through life, certain, priorities change. I think we have to meet people where they're at. And I think the White House is doing this. And I think this is why you saw yesterday, I don't know if you guys talked about it on Daily, they're all going and signing on to TikTok now because there's an audience and a demographic that's there. So I think you got to find where people are and then use those areas of operation to communicate with them.
All right, let's hit these two stories before we get into the Iran talk. From the Epoch Times, federal judge dismisses DOJ lawsuit against Minnesota sanctuary policies. The federal judge threw out the challenge to a series of so-called sanctuary laws and policies in Minnesota that limit cooperation with federal agencies. Judge Eric Tostred, a Trump appointee, found that requiring the state and localities to enforce federal immigration laws would run afoul of the U.S. Constitution's 10th Amendment, which creates a balance of power between the states and the federal government. Pre-Reconstruction, I would agree with that 100%. However, post-Reconstruction, I disagree. Some Minnesota laws restrict the sharing of information that various governments may hold about non-citizens in their jurisdiction. Others prohibit officials from honoring ICE immigration detainers and forbid local law enforcement officers from participating in immigration enforcement. The federal government argues that these laws and policies violate the Constitution's supremacy clause and are preempted by federal law, that they may burden the federal government in violation of the intergovernmental immunity doctrine, which prevents states and their subdivisions from imposing burdens on federal government or its operations. The department has sought a declaration that the laws and policies were unconstitutional. So in other words, they're saying by the Minnesota law enforcement, whatever, taking these detainers and not cooperating with ICE and handing them over, They are interfering with the government's operations. I don't see how this was like a problem. There's no burden that's put on Minnesota law enforcement by allowing these people to be handed over to the federal government. In fact, it's relieving them of a burden of having to prosecute and, charge these people and go through that whole process. But somehow this was a burden. Last thing here, and then I'll hand it over to you. The judge held the DOJ's interpretation of applicable federal statutes and regulations would violate the 10th anti-commandeering doctrine, the 10th Amendment's anti-commandeering doctrine, a cornerstone of federalism that forbids the federal government from forcing states and localities to enforce federal law or use their resources for federal purposes. Now, I am not a federalist in any way, shape, or form. I'm an anti-federalist through and through. Immigration, the invasion at our southern border, the authority in the Constitution for the President of the United States to be entrusted with securing our borders, that is about as federalist as I'm going to get. And 100% President Trump has that authority. Any president has that authority. And to compel a state to hand over illegal detained immigrants in accordance with the Constitution, I don't see how this judge ruled like that.
In this specific situation, I'm on board with you. Zooming out of it and looking at it as a broad issue, state to state, I actually kind of support this, but for a different reason. Let me explain. And I think it has to do with there's modifications that need to take place. And here's why, because I'm thinking the long term of what, when you handle something acute, what does it look like long term if things aren't addressed and things aren't put in writing? Law enforcement is understaffed pretty much everywhere in this country, just so people can understand that. Way understaffed. And there's a reason people wait 2 and 3 hours. I'm not going to go into the entire conversation, but it's vastly understaffed. So when you start to use local law enforcement to enforce or assist with crimes or operations that are outside the scope of their normal duties, that actually does take a toll on law enforcement that then has an effect when it comes to the local enforcement of things. So I understand that. However, you can do things like, for instance, when we go into certain task force or operations, we'll get federally sworn in on things. Mm-hmm. You can do temporary things where if you have a huge issue, like what we saw, like in Minnesota, where you come in and you federalize these guys for 30 days, 90 days, whatever the case is. So there's a start and there's a sunset on this, 100% behind those things. But the reason I would say we don't want to continue to go down this round the way we are is because then it negates stats that we need. For instance, we can't accomplish this mission right now. And we'll just say Minnesota with the amount of ICE officers we have because we don't have enough. Well, then that creates, so we have a staffing issue on the federal side, which means we have to hire guys. We have to supplement. We have to bring the numbers federally to where we need to be. If you're allowing things to be compensated on the local level, well, then the local taxpayer is taking on the burden of something that's a national issue, not just a local issue. And so I agree with like emergency situations. You can come in, essentially deputize these guys at the federal level to do these things. I'm good with that. But I think what we're seeing here is we are also understaffed at the federal level when it comes to these kinds of things. And I just think we have to be very careful on the expectation of what local law enforcement does when it comes to the enforcement of immigration duties. I think law enforcement, the one thing I disagree with them on is restricting. Law enforcement should never be restricted from assisting or helping federal agencies. There should be a very clear area of what that scope includes. Like, I worked in a sanctuary city, and one of the frustrating things that happened to us is we were forbidden. Like you would be outside policy if you went and all of a sudden did something that was considered enforcement. You pull over Southern California, you don't think you'd be pulling over illegals? Hell yeah, you are. But if you did something in that content or in that contact that was considered enforcement, you could get into an internal affairs investigation. So again, good guys are going to find workarounds, and one of those workarounds was, well, there's no one that can help me with translation, so I'm going to call my Border Patrol buddy to help me with translation. And they show up, and then, all right, I'm done with my thing. I'm out of here. And Border Patrol be like, hey, homie, hey,
what's up, buddy? You got your green card,
right? So good guys will always find a workaround, but that's the problem. That workaround, that workaround's the burden of the guys that are doing the job.
So I get that in that aspect, but I don't know that, and maybe a certain aspect of this ask from the DOJ has to deal with, Minnesota law enforcement doing federal jobs. But I think this was more, and I'm pretty sure this lawsuit, at least in part, was about, criminals that are already being detained, and DHS coming out and saying, hey, this guy is on our hit list for ICE. We need him. And they're like, no, we're not doing your job for you. That's what I'm getting at. Because again, from there, I'm with you broadly on local law enforcement not doing the job. However, I will say this: if you don't want to do the job, if you don't want to help out your federal buddies, stop taking federal money. No more federal money for local law enforcement. You rely on the state funding from that point on, which that's my anti-federalism coming out. I think that money should be cut. I think that money should be cut off, period. The only federal agency that I believe to be legitimate is ICE and Customs. Nothing else. FBI gone. Border Patrol is in with ICE and Customs. Border Patrol gone. Border Patrol, FBI gone. DEA gone. All of these agencies gone. But authoritarian alpha will come out and challenge me on that.
I won't challenge that. What you know my position. The agencies should be gone, but not the operations. DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, should not be federal agents. I'll put an asterisk there because I'll come back to it. But DEA operations should be ran by your sheriff's department. Yeah, it should be a collaboration of sheriff's departments. We do need federal and law enforcement, and I'm not talking about the U.S. Marshals. I'm talking like the FBI. But it's always been my position for analysis and for crime scene. That's it.
So you're going back to the pre-Hoover FBI where it was just the Bureau of Investigations and they didn't even carry guns.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm with you. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with investigating crime scenes and prosecuting crimes, but not actively engaged in law enforcement. I'm with you on that. Okay.
Crime patterns, trends, data that's picked up from multiple agencies. That's what it should be.
All right. And then the last thing on domestic, and then we'll talk Iran, just, for all my fellow Taco Bell lovers out there, false alarm. It wasn't from Taco Bell. Actually, it may have been, but the FDA said it's still investigating the cyclosporiasis outbreak. The test they got back from Taylor Farms was actually a false positive. Now, the other thing that's noteworthy here is you're hearing all this Taco Bell like trash talk. And granted, I still have not had Taco Bell in like 2 or 3 months now. Investigators found many people who had gotten sick ate at Taco Bell restaurants and supplied with Taylor Farms lettuce. 1,600 cases in Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and West Virginia. So if you're not in one of those 5 states, chances of you getting sick are slim to none from migrants pooping in your lettuce. That's what we dubbed it yesterday because Republicans introduced a bill to give amnesty to migrant farm workers, which is crazy. So, and that's all I've got on local stuff. Is there anything before we get into some of the overseas stuff? Anything I'm missing?
Nothing that comes to mind, no.
Okay, so you know what that means? Muffin, hit it.
One hero, one mission.
No, Gigi, we can't stop for snacks, dude. We have to deliver all of these soft disclosure gift cards.
He goes by Zach Kane.
The motion detector.
Stop fighting over the beer brush.
Life finds a way.
Hydrate your elbows. Moisturize your soul. Feel the rhythm together. Makes you feel alive and let the lotion roll. Soft disclosure.
right. Softdisclosure.com. Promo code Muffin. Hit it. Get you the beard oil. Get you the beard brush. You know, Alpha usually is over there grooming his little peach fuzz, but not today, I guess. You know, usually come back and he's scratching his skin, pretending he's got a beard.
Jackass. That was good.
Scratching his skin, pretending there's a beard in there somewhere. All right. ABC News, new Air Force One jet to be maxed out, Trump says, after security concerns raised. This is interesting because I still think this was a canary trap, but we'll see. New Air Force One will be quote unquote maxed out with security features, undergoing an upgrade that's put the jet out of commission for about a month. President Trump said on Sunday, quote, well, it has a lot, and you know it has a lot of capability, but as I understand it, in about a month or so, they're going to send it to have it maxed out, the president said. So again, I still think, and I'm standing by this, still think it's fucking absurd to think that Air Force One, the Qatari jet, affectionately dubbed Air Force One, did not have anti-missile defense capabilities. Just so stupid. But
I don't buy it for a second.
So why are they just really playing up the canary trap? Maybe it was because Canncon figured it out, posted it up, and everybody's like, "Hey, traps!" And they're like, "Shit, we got to double down on this."
We're committed to this one.
Damn you, Canncon! Why are you exposing all of our shenanigans? And they're like, let's just throw it away for a month and we'll just go on the old Air Force. You're not even traveling this much this month. You're not even traveling that much this month. Okay, fine. I don't know. All right, let's get into Iran. I know you're dying to talk about Iran. I saw the private chat there.
Oh, no, it came in, so I just wanted to send it to you. That's all.
Alpha was like in the private chat. He's like, bro, please let me talk about Iran and how we need to bomb all of them down to oblivion. Here's President Trump talking about your not your pickaxe, but Pickaxe Mountain.
Do you believe that Iran has moved nuclear centrifuges into Pickaxe Mountain? And when you say we're not done yet, what is left to finish?
Well, I think that they may have. We don't have it on record. All we do is read the fake news. You know, we see the news is so wrong so many times. So, you know, maybe this one they have right, but it's okay. It doesn't mean anything unless they have the material. You're talking about the centrifuges. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything unless they have the material. They don't have. We follow the material. That's where the action is, and we'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon. And there's not a thing they can do about it. You know, normally I wouldn't say that. If I thought they could do something about it, I would never say that. But we'll be hitting that area pretty soon, and very heavily.
So we're gonna hit Pickaxe Mountain. I don't know why that sounds like a country song or something. Going down to Pickaxe Mountain. Gonna have myself a nuclear centrifuge.
Yeah,
I don't know. So, you know, he's talking about the fake news media. So let's jump into the fake news media. What is Pickaxe Mountain, the Iranian nuclear facility that Trump is threatening to strike? And it turns out they began construction on Pickaxe Mountain, reportedly in 2020. So this nuclear facility that's buried 100 meters below a mountain and is a nuclear, enrichment facility. They only started building it 6 years ago. That's crazy. I don't think it's actually done. In fact, they don't even know if it's done. Since the U.S. struck 3 nuclear sites in June of 2025, construction at Pickaxe Mountain has accelerated, meaning just as of June, Midnight Hammer, it wasn't even done yet. Center for Strategic and International Studies, another deep state think tank, says it's unclear when Pickaxe Mountain could actually be operational. So I don't know what the fascination with this site is. If you have any insight or any ideas on it, I am all ears on why people are obsessing over Pickaxe Mountain.
I don't know about other people, but I know why me and Josh are. We believe that this is where the HQ is a lot of the IRGC deep state that remains. This is where they're hiding out. This is where they feel safe that we can't get to them. And you had Secretary of Hegseth that when he was questioned on it yesterday, or maybe the day before, in the last few days, he came out and he said, you know, when he was giving his testimony, and who was it that was asking him? Was it? It was, I think it was Kennedy, because it was his accent. I like the way he talks. But he just says, do we even have the ability to get to it? Right. And Secretary Hegseth says, he goes, look, there's some stuff that's, you know, classified, and we have to weigh, you know, the pros and cons of what get you. So in other words, folks, we have the weapon systems to do it. Whether we want to or not, I would say go watch DEFCON last night. We had a very long conversation on the pros and cons of that. But I would say that's what my fascination is with it, that whatever's down there is something they don't want us to touch. Is it people? Is it the nuclear dust? Is it something else? I don't know, but it's important.
Or is it just a whole fake thing? And Trump's like, yeah, we're going to hit it really hard. And he's got everybody, their jollies rustled over this. He's, you know, telling the Iranians, we're going to do it. I wouldn't normally tell you, but there's nothing they can do to stop it. Or maybe they just wouldn't even bother stopping it. Like, I
don't think,
who knows?
I don't think it's fake, because if for it to be fake means that we already beat the deep state, and we haven't. The deep state still is entrenched in Iran. We've crippled it. We have them. We definitely have them on their heels. And we're dealing with the remnants of it, because, you know, and Ghost and others have talked about this, you know, Iran implementing their COG, right? And we're seeing that play out. But again, is Trump's not taking out the people of Iran. He's not glassing them. He's doing strategic targets on the military. And now, you know, one of the things that I sent to Canncon, he's going to increase that threshold, which is going to create the political pressure from the people on this government. So, you know, there's something down there. You know, is it nuclear? Is it not? I think whatever nuclear stuff was there, China's already pulled it out. I think that's in collaboration with Trump. But I think there is something deep state related that's down in Pickaxe Mountain, and he's going to take it out.
I think there's a possibility that Pickaxe Mountain, by the way, funny name, that has nothing to do with the actual you know, Islamic name. Like, I don't even know where that name comes from. It could be like the Ghost of Kiev or any of the other narratives that have been put out there surrounding the war. Could be, very well could be a totally real place that Iran's building the nuclear, you know, centrifuges.
I was told a very funny but racist joke on how I got the name Pickaxe.
Let's not go there.
Okay. It's hilarious, bro.
You could save it for tomorrow night on Sit Rep. You know, I'll remind you tomorrow night to bring it up. You can get or Y Chromes, whatever you want. But yeah, again, who knows? But here is General Kane and Raisin Kane. I feel like we got to always say Raisin Kane when we talk about him. Also, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is going to comment at the end here with Senator John Kennedy, not John F. Kennedy, but John Kennedy.
Will they put tolls on the strait?
I don't know, sir. That's a decision that's a hypothetical and will depend on what happens.
It's not
in the future.
hypothetical. We got a blockade to stop them.
We do, sir. That's
Gentlemen,
putting
I want you to
economic
look me in
pressure
the
on
eye.
them.
I'm not asking you for, I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I know your advice to the president is private, but this is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke.
It's weird.
Now, what happens if we come home and end the blockade to the world?
Sir, Iran has the potential to continue to be a threat, and we will need to prepare military
Will they
options
toll
to do
the
that.
strait?
Sir, that's a hypothetical question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, it's not hypothetical. We come home. It's not going to be hypothetical. You know that, General, and I do too. And I appreciate your discretion, but we're down to it. We need some hard answers and some straight talk. What'll happen, Pete?
Pete, my boy.
Senator, I would agree with the chairman, but the likely outcome is they would try to impose their will on the waterways in ways that the world would not like. Call it a toll, call it a fee, call it an exchange, call it control. They would do something that they would try to hold it at issue. Yes, sir.
Would they try to commence development again of a nuclear warhead?
part of the reason President Trump had to have the courage to do what he did after Midnight Hammer is that they didn't give up their ambitions, even though their nuclear sites had been obliterated. So this is a regime hell-bent on nuclear ambitions, and
Guys,
President
we
Trump's
need
been willing to
straight
go after it.
answers. We need straight answers. Do we have the ability to destroy whatever is underneath Pickaxe Mountain?
Senator, a lot of our capabilities are classified, but if anybody in the world can reach anything on God's green earth, it's the United States military, the most powerful military in the world. It's all about options and trade-offs.
All right. I'm going to take a little extra time because
AT&T. Did you guys do that in boot camp? AT&T. Reach out and touch somebody.
Oh yeah.
You never did that in boot camp?
We did. What's it called? AT&T? I don't remember. I do remember that, man. It's been so damn long.
AT&T, reach out and touch somebody. You'd have to grab the guy in front of you. Yeah, so that was the hearing yesterday, and I don't know how well it's gonna have, fared with the Senate, but the Washington Post put this story out. The Pentagon is sinking billions into the Iran war and quickly running short on cash, saying that they face urgent budget shortfalls with some critical lines of funding set to run out within weeks. The funding crunch is leading the Pentagon to limit training and maintenance that help maintain military readiness. The White House has asked Congress for an immediate infusion of $67 billion to help cover the cost, but lawmakers are gridlocked over how to proceed. The House plans to leave Washington on Thursday for a month-long recess. Must be nice. Leaving any deal on military funding weeks away at the earliest. Look, man, I think one of the things, Alpha, and I'll let you comment on the Iran war as a whole, but macro view with Ukraine and Russia, with Israel and Gaza and Palestine, and the U.S. now and Iran, I think the macro takeaway from all of this is that modern day warfare is unsustainable. Like, this is Iran. This is a 5-month conflict with Iran. This isn't us against Russia. This isn't us against China, although it might be through proxies, whatever. How does any country survive just financially, not even talking about mutually assured destruction? How do you assure the survive the financial implications of a mass scale war between two superpowers? It can't be survived.
I disagree, man. It can't be survived in the economic conditions we have because of the exploitation of our money everywhere else.
It can't be survived in the warfare that we have.
I disagree. If somebody went and somebody probably already has, if you got the total number of fraud that is happening and waste in our country, to include the military industrial complex in this conversation too, right? The stuff to Ukraine, like if you got that total sum, that's a massive, uncomprehendable amount of money. That money redistributed it the correct way, the manufacturing being here, the jobs being here, the prosperity being here, I think America would have the ability to economically handle any type of war, regardless of how long it lasted. But I think Trump's also shown wars don't have to be forever wars. But I think with money put in the right places, we have that. And again, if we had an American populace that trusted the government and knew that we weren't being ripped off, and we found ourselves on the brink of a legitimate World War III, I think Americans with love of country wouldn't mind that sacrifice. People don't want to do it now because there's an absence of trust, and it's warranted. This is the culture change that's going to happen for, probably not our generation, but for our kids. I think can see this mentality of where we go back to love of country and willing to sacrifice when needed because we're not being ripped. But right now, since we've been ripped for so long, I don't think people want to make that sacrifice. So, your opinion, I think, is shared through the mindset of we just don't want to. But if we had to and things were different, I think we absolutely could.
Well, I mean, the war that we're operating in is also not being funded by Congress directly. It's Pentagon's budget surplus being allocated to the war. Yesterday we covered the story from Lockheed Martin where they're like, oh yeah, we can actually build those Patriot missiles for half price. And it's like, wait. Wait. Alpha just brought up the fraud, waste, and abuse in this government. You're telling me you could have been building these for half the price the whole time? You sons of bitches.
100%.
You should be hauled in before Congress and asked. We're not talking about, we're not talking about saving you 10%. We're not talking about 20%. Half price? You could have been building these? Yeah, you need to be hauled in before Congress to answer some questions about that, in my opinion. But that's the fraud, waste, and abuse. That's the revolving door between the bureaucracy and the private contracting firms. The defense industry goes all the way out from, HHS goes to big pharma, the military goes to, and the intelligence goes to war and technology. All of it, the whole thing's corrupt top to bottom. I'm with you 100%. That being said, I still don't think modern warfare, where we're lobbing $1 million rockets at each other to, lobbing a $4 million missile to take down a $40,000 drone. That's not sustainable, man. And
here's why it is. For other countries, no. But for us, yes.
Because we got the Federal Reserve, so we'll just make slaves work harder.
Because we have the ability to outlast any country that's out there, which is something that Trump's also changing out, using this economic prosperity model to where I need you for this and you need us for this. So we should avoid conflict so we don't destroy our economies.
Man, that comment right there, Alpha, outside, there's 3,200 people watching outside of the maybe 20 feds that are watching us right now, maybe 30 feds that are watching us right now. You just told 3,100 slaves, get back to work. Uncle Sam needs your tax dollars so we can make sure that the military industrial complex can win every war.
Not this one, but the real military.
I like President Trump. I like President Trump doing the diplomatic things.
I do too, but I also don't want to abandon the thought from John F. Kennedy: ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And sometimes we got to sacrifice.
I've done enough, man. We're $40 trillion in debt. I'm overtaxed, overworked, and not so much anymore.
What's that business model? You got a
job now, but
you got to spend money to make money. And, listen, we got the shaft, and we got to take the shaft. We got to continue to take the shaft so that our kids don't have to.
Well, let's get into this story from Axios, and this will probably be we'll hit Trump's truth that you sent me, and this will probably be the last story of the day here. From Axios, Iran mediators push new ceasefire as Trump eyes all-out war. This is from Barack Ravid, who Ghosts believes has an interesting relationship with President Trump. President Trump is nearing a decisive fork in the Iran war, with U.S. and Israeli officials envisioning only two viable endgames. And this is purely messaging, guys. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think President Trump is thinking this necessarily. And I definitely don't think that, I should say, I don't think Barack Ravid is necessarily thinking this, although he's writing it. I definitely don't think President Trump is thinking this. Option one, pursue a 10-day ceasefire aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz. So that's the ask, and here's the threat. Option two, launch a massive joint military campaign with Israel to force Tehran's capitulation. Trump hasn't made a decision yet. Qatar, Egypt, Pakistan, and other regional mediators have presented a proposal for a 10-day ceasefire, according to two regional sources with direct knowledge. The Trump admin is exploring the proposal and has urged Israel to avoid steps that could close the diplomatic window, according to a U.S. official. Now, the two reasons, Alpha, that I think that Trump is not seriously considering this is that statement right there, whether or not that's true. But also, what did we see earlier this week? Netanyahu can't get a meeting with President Trump. Netanyahu's like, I'm not coming to the U.S. I can't get a meeting with him. I'm going to save it for when Lindsay's there for Lindsay's funeral, because when I go see Ladybug and put him in the ground, for sure, President Trump will be there. And maybe then I'll be able to get an audience with him. I don't know. You want to comment on that?
Look for a meme that's going to be dropping here in the next few hours. That'll be my comment to that. But I agree with you. I agree with you in the position you have there.
All right. Israeli sources said the IDF is on high alert and preparing for a possible expansion of the war into a full scale. I was going to say false flag, but it's a full scale. That's what the word says, full scale. The Houthis in Yemen have declared a maritime blockade on Saudi ports, which I thought was really interesting. And then this last part, Alpha, I got excited for you. I honestly got excited for you. And then I realized it's kind of a nothing burger. But I'm still going to let you read the next part. Read that purple part.
During the 10-day ceasefire, the U.S. and Iran would negotiate a long-term arrangement governing passage through the strait. One option would allow Iran to collect reasonable service fees for maritime security, environmental protection, and other services. The source pointed to the Strait of Malacca, ding, 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 where Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore charge vessels for specific services rather than a blanket transit fee as a possible model.
So I saw when I was reading the article, I was like scanning through the end of it, and I was like, wait, Strait of Malacca. Oh, Alpha's on today. He's going to love that. And then it's just like saying, like, follow that model, which that's fair. That's fair. It's not, it's not full blown eyes on the Strait of Malacca, but most
it's
of
fair
our
because
audience probably doesn't even know where the Strait of Malacca is. Well, no, most of.
I've been trying to show it like on the shows where I talk about it. I've been bringing it up so people can see. Because you can say Malaysia, then people are like, well, where's Malaysia? Where's Malaysia, right?
And to be fair, I'm not insulting people. Until Alpha brought it up, I've heard of the Strait of Malacca. I did not know where it was. So I'm not trying to insult people. I'm just telling it like it is.
But a reason that model is very possible is because it's already a model that China operates with. And when you understand the influence of China onto Iran, that makes it a very feasible, plausible model.
There you go. So Alpha is a Mossad agent working with Barack Ravid to influence policy. I don't know.
That's not true. There's
All
no
right,
evidence of that.
So you sent me this. You want to? Oh wait, not that one. This one. I'm saving that for tomorrow. You want to read it?
I'm trying to give him 7,000 shekels real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, I know. Oh, go ahead and read it.
Donald Trump, this is on Truth, folks, from about an hour and a half ago. From this point forward, any time the Islamic Republic of Iran shoots at a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, whether it be by missile, rocket, drone, or any other device or weapon, the United States will bomb and destroy one bridge or power plant, including those located next to or in the capital city of Tehran. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump.
Let's go. I love it.
Now,
love it.
Here's what I'll say, right? All the neocons and BB are like, yes, this is what we've been waiting for. Just one, if you take out an American service member, rain hell on them. 100% agree with that. I actually think that his post here reminds me of what is glass all of Iran. Remember when Trump did that one? Everybody lost their effing minds.
Yep.
I actually think this is what that is. And I think the reason he did that post is to generate all this very neocon commentary so that he can actually get to the model that resembles something like the Strait of Malacca. I actually think that's what's going on here.
All right. Well, there we go. Time flies, man. We are over 2 hours, so let's run through these rants quickly here. Vector 117 and EC was here. Thanks for the raids this morning. Emerald Dragon 1333. Rhode Island is getting investigated for motor voter issues now, too. Heck yeah, let's go. PSA Farm Girl, yes, Canncon. Connecticut uses the ERIC system, have many illegals voting. Also have secondhand info on how homeless were being paid to go to Ohio. I wonder what for. I don't know. It could be mass relocation or could be voter registrations. I don't know. Ash 1776. Brian, we should refer to the Chinese, Venezuela, Cuban election thieves as China Zubins. I really want to hear you pronounce this one too. China Zubins. China Zubins. I think I nailed that. All right. Good thing I didn't pre-read that because then I would have been like Chinese Zubins. Chinesabins. I don't know. Emerald Dragon, thanks, Ash. If genuine Americans don't get some serious reparations, call it what you like, for all the wealth and time and energy that's been stolen from us, when this is all done, I say we grab the muskets. Whoa. The muskies, the little animals. Emerald Dragon, myself, my toilet, and my wazoo survived Taco Bell last night. Just FYI, that wazoo is a hat tip to our date night podcast with me and Christy, because we found out, like, you know what a wazoo is?
No,
it's a butt. It's an ass. So when they say, up the wazoo, it's up your ass. Yeah, We didn't know that. Me and Christy looked it up on date night. So Emerald Dragon, thanks for watching date night, rumble.com/Canncon. Emerald Dragon 1333. I've taken that shaft long, hard, and deep enough. But thanks for the offer. Also, not having kids, that decision has been made and is now final. I want the good life. Oh, I think Alpha would disagree with you on that one.
I empathize with their position. And trust me, I want the reparations just as much as you do.
No,
However,
you don't. You want the next world war because we'll all go to work in order to pay for it.
listen, there's a selfish side of me that's, look, you guys want to know Alpha's wet dream? I'm going to tell it to you right here in 20 seconds. All right. Make Trump a king. And then let's go and plant the U.S. flag on the entire globe, we're going to destroy Judaism. We're going to destroy Islam. We're going to destroy Buddhism. We're going to make everyone Christians, and the entire planet is just going to be called the United States of Earth. And I get to be on a fucking horse with a Maximus sword. So anyone that opposes, I just go, right? Listen, I'm all about that life. I am all about that life. But I understand that that's selfish. So the contingency, don't you abandon me. Don't you leave me in this moment of authority. But I'm willing to suppress my greed and say, we'll take the shaft and we might not get all that so that our kids can live in a free market world and that. Okay. But just so you guys know that deep down inside, that's like what I really want. And I'm not joking. Like deep down inside, that's what I really want.
I'm okay with the Kingmaker concept. I don't know about planting our flag on
everywhere, bro. Right?
I'm okay with the king. You lost me after that. Because remember,
American, these are our wallabies. Not no more, bitches. They're ours.
We can still keep, we can still keep the Constitution. We could go like Magna Carta, like
Americans. These are our pandas. Not no more. They're our pandas.
All right, we're way over. Where can people? What do you got coming up, bro?
Just Operation Gladio tonight. If you guys aren't watching Something Badlands, come watch it. If you are watching Something Badlands, catch the replay. And then overwatching the Guardians tonight, not tomorrow. And make sure you guys tune in to Ghosts on Badlands Daily tomorrow, folks, if you missed Ghosts.
All right. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Stay tuned. You got Daily Herald coming up here, and I'm sure we've got some other some special coverage that's going to be going on. And I'm off for the night, so I might come back and do an episode on some of this stuff, but we'll see. God bless, guys. Take care.